Okay, welcome everybody. So, very exciting week. We're going to be talking about social media and mobile, which is really a very hot topic. And today's guest I have is Nick Cicero. And Nick is most famous right now for what he's doing with Snapchat and Snapchat analytics. And Nick, I'm going to let you say a little bit about yourself and introduce you. So, welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. As you mentioned before, my name is Nick Cicero, and I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Del Mondo.
And I highly recommend that you go to Dalmondo's website and subscribe to Nick's newsletter because he puts out, I'm not sure how often it goes out, once a week or once a month.
Right now, we try to do it once a week.
Okay, and it's great, very fresh information on what's happening, not just with Snapchat, but within the whole mobile marketing community. So, Nick, let's just get started with a few questions. So, it seems like 2016, the second it started, this is the year for Snapchat and brands. And what are you seeing, and why do you think all of a sudden brands are now waking up to Snapchat?
Well, I think that it's really just flat out the place where people are, and there are so many more people that are using Snapchat every single day. And I think that brands are finally starting to recognize that, whereas before they might not have been ready in a way that I think that a lot of us thought that this would definitely get there to be.
Okay, so Snapchat is definitely nothing new to your audience. So the students here have been on Snapchat probably since day one. I've been on Snapchat for probably about a year, but I didn't really have that many of my friends on Snapchat, so I couldn't really do that much until recently. Probably the past 6 months, I'm on it more. So what are some trends that brands are doing now to really adapt Snapchat as part of their marketing, and what do you see that's working?
Yeah, so I think that we're seeing a lot of brands go one of two directions. We're seeing them go like the paid media route, which is using Snapchat's ad platform, doing things like branded geo filters, video ads, and then you have brands that are also creating content, opening up their own accounts as well. And so for the brands who are opening up and creating their own accounts, we're seeing a lot of things like behind the scenes access of different parts of that brand's life, whether it's going to an event that they've sponsored and giving people a behind the scenes access, or whether it's going to a different type of experience and sharing that with everybody. And then they're also going and creating channels as well and kind of creating entertainment and content right for that platform as well. So whether that's doing it themselves or hiring really popular creators to do that and working with influencers, they're looking at different options of telling those stories.
One of the things that I've been noticing that I has kind of been happening not just recently, but in the past year, is takeover of Snapchat accounts with influencers.
Right.
So, how do you think that is going to merge into 2016? Is that going to continue to be a good strategy, or is that just one of many now?
Yeah, I think that there's a really interesting component of takeovers. I think one, the discoverability on Snapchat has been really difficult. And so takeovers have been one way for different people's audiences to bridge the gap and bring them together. But I think that as you look at Snapchat going forward, even without, or even if they do open up and even when they do find better ways for people to discover outside of their friend circle, I do think that there's a personal element of what the takeover might mean for folks. And so when you think about the way that Snapchat loads content, it doesn't load in the background. You have to actually like push down and hold your finger down to actually open up that story. And so I think that we have this opportunity for more and more takeovers to happen, for people to bring their different points of view into one particular channel. And brands, instead of just like maybe running a long narrative of their story, might actually look to their Snapchat as almost like as a YouTube or a Twitch and a place to create really unique content, maybe by different types of people over time.
Yeah, I happen to love that. I saw Disney did it probably about a year ago, and I've seen even University of Florida did it, and it just seems like it's just such a fresh perspective than to the typical social media management type of content creation. So I agree. I think that's going to continue to stay popular. So okay, so brands are flocking to Snapchat. What do you think the millennials, the Snapchat users, think of brands coming on to Snapchat? Are they going to accept that?
I think that a lot like with every new platform, there's going to be brands that are going to be coming on there, and I think that People have gotten used to it in the past on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I think that the interesting thing is the brands, who will have success, and the folks that actually are able to build a sustained audience and have content that people will want to actually watch. I think that right now it's still really early. I think that there are a lot more mobile users that actually haven't jumped over to Snapchat yet or haven't tried that out. And so I think that there's still a huge opportunity for the right brands to come in there now and actually make something that's meaningful and use that as part of what they're doing. And so I think that we'll have to see as it matures how that grows. But I do think that more and more brands, as they do go on, hopefully will think about that and realize that they are playing in a space where a lot of people are just sharing a lot of photos with their friends. And so if they're not coming up with something unique and interesting, or you're not putting something out there, you're not going to build a sustained audience.
Got it. Okay, so for social media managers that are out there and want to kind of dip their toe into Snapchat, can you give us an easy way to get involved, a medium way, and more of a complicated way? So if somebody just, what would be easy, medium, and a little bit more on the difficult, complicated?
Yeah, so I think that one of the easiest ways is bringing people in and starting to create content from a personal POV. So whether or not you have different employees at your company or different partners or different people within your organization, people bring different point of views when they tell their story through Snapchat. And it is so much of like a personal video platform as much as it is a way to like tell really unique and crazy stories. So I think that you can look at the people within your organization and maybe share that, allow them to different points of view. Brave Ventures, who's our investors at Del Mondo, we've been working with them and introducing Snapchat and figuring out different ways for them to actually come together and tell their story. And what we've been doing is doing different daily points of view, where you take one topic and you create a piece, and maybe it was an article that they read on Ad Age, and everybody, 4 different employees all give their little point of view about it, and that's their video for the day. And so I think that you can look at different opportunities like that to just bring a few different people into the conversation in a short form.
I'm so glad you brought up Brave Ventures because I added them and I've been following them since you told everybody to. So for those, so for our audience, add Brave Ventures on Snapchat. And I love what they're doing. I'm coming from a traditional public relations background that's now transitioned over the past 10 years into social and search. And I just love what they're doing. I think that they're really a very good example of a brand that's not like a Mashable on Snapchat that somebody can say, okay, that's a great way it's very inspirational for
Yeah.
any size business, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's just as simple as, like I said, sharing a point of view.
And so if the students they want to add you on Snapchat, your handle is Nick Cicero.
Yep. Just my name, Nick Cicero.
And then any other Snapchat handles you recommend?
I recommend looking at some really cool influencers, like Cyrene Q is a really good influencer to follow, a really good storyteller. Mike Platko, so M Platko, EM Garber, and Brandon Harvey. Those are some good folks to start with.
And Gary Vee has just been going crazy on Snapchat
Oh
with
yeah,
Snapchat.
Gary Vee has definitely been going crazy, and that's been fun. It's good to see. I think that it's really funny when different people have their different points of view and they bring different elements. So it's hard to say like who's you can have your stories be really long, you can have your stories be really short. So it's interesting to mix it up and see the different types of stories that every day brings that you can tell.
Okay, one more question, and then Nick is actually going to be back in our last week and talking about measurement. So one more question while we're on the subject of mobile. So do you have any tips for the students who are going to be possibly future social media managers, and how to, tips that they can use as stepping stones in their career, advice that you can give them from a
Yeah,
business standpoint or Snapchat standpoint?
I think that in general, if you want to be a professional in social media and create content on behalf of a brand or in an agency form and not do it like for yourself, which is a totally different, influencer type thing. I think that you want to find the platforms that you can create the best content and have the best amount of reaction with the least amount of energy. And I think that you don't need to be on every single platform, but you do need to find what's evolving and figure out what's there. So taking a look at what new platforms are out there, experimenting here, experimenting there, but also knowing where to spend the bulk of your time to get the most amount of return from, I think is more obvious than people might think, but they jump around oftentimes and thinking that they need to be on all these different places. So If you're going to be a social media manager in the future, you're going to need to manage and balance that technology piece really well.
Great advice. Burnout in social media has to be probably one of the most popular negative things that can happen to you, right?
Yep, definitely.
And how did you start your company, Del Mondo?
So basically, our company started when we had a lot of these creators who were coming to us, or coming to me personally, that I knew really just as a freelance social consultant and doing different projects for different people. They had opportunities and they're saying, hey, all these brands wanted to come reach out and work with me. Do you have any advice? And I've worked in the music industry for a number of years and done different types of projects around this as well. So kind of taking that experience and knowledge, bringing it in there, we started to go out with a few more influencers. And then really we met the first Snapchat influencers through a friend of mine who actually his roommate in college was one of the first Snapchat influencers, Evan Garber. And then we basically ran from there. We found this whole community of Snapchat influencers, and that's kind of why we found ourselves doing so many of those types of campaigns last year. So now from there, we're taking it and building it into a technology platform and growing.
Awesome. So we're going to talk more about that in the last week of class, talking about measurement. But for now, Nick, thank you so much, and we will catch up with you in a couple weeks.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Okay, perfect. So now we'll transition into the last week and talk about your Snapchat analytics. So is this open, before we start the interview, is this open to everybody, or how does it work?
So it's just we generally work with select brands right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you mention the brands? Can I ask you who the brands are?
I don't really want to mention the brands, unfortunately.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, 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 that's
I mean,
okay.
I can say the examples of companies that we've worked with, like in the past on campaigns, like Jolly Rancher and JBL. There's people that we have worked with that I can mention, but
Hmm.
other like the ongoing campaigns right now, I'm not going to mention.
Okay, great. And before I forget, also, I noticed that you worked on the campaign Being 13.
Yeah.
So do you have any contacts that we can talk about after an email or whatever? I'm trying to find a couple speakers that show prompted something that I'm on the board with that are
Oh yeah.
for the middle schoolers.
Yep. I have a contact easily.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so now let's get started for the next part. Ready?
Great. Yep.
Okay, so now we're back to our week talking about measurement. And I'm Lisa Beyer, and I have back with us today Nick Cicero. He's with Delamondo, and he is, I think, one of the only agencies that really have a focus right now on Snapchat analytics, which is a moving target, I would say, more than any other social media network. So, Nick, tell us about how do you measure with Snapchat?
Yeah, so when we measure on Snapchat, we look just like, any user on Snapchat, we look at the stories. And so when you create content as a person or as a brand or whoever, you're telling really awesome stories, and it's almost like the beginning and the end of a book, and it has chapters all along the way. And so what we do is we have brands that log in, and we're actually able to pull their analytics every day, and we're sharing the different metrics because there are a lot of different elements, the number of people who viewed your story and things like that. So what we do is we provide that all in a way that's easy to report on the back end to show different brands what's happening there.
Okay, got it. So we used your ebook as part of the content for this week in measurement. And in that book, you kind of give a couple different scenarios of ideal formulas for stories. So can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, so there are a number of different ways that you can create different stories on Snapchat. And I think that you look and, if you think about what a story is, you have a 24-hour window to post content. And you can post as many different snaps as you want. The way that people can watch them, though, always starts from beginning to end. So if you think about a behavior of a person on Snapchat, you might think about the way that you use Snapchat yourself. If you open up an account, you might watch all of their stories, and maybe you might not watch every single one of them, but you might start to watch through them. So if you are a creator of content on Snapchat, you really have a few different options. One would be to post over the course of a 24-hour window, and that's spreading your stories out. And really, most of us do that naturally anyways right now. We share different pieces as we go throughout our day. It's really unplanned. We don't think about when we're going to upload that content. It just is in the moment, naturally as it happens. Most people do this. But you can also do different types of things and post your stories all at once to make sure that people do actually see them in one way. So if you turn your phone, for example, on airplane mode, you can actually shoot a bunch of content on Snapchat and not post that. So you could actually upload like 10 snaps in a row if you want to make sure that people see a whole story from start to finish that might have taken you an hour or 2 hours to actually put together. So that's one great way to actually like can put all of your pieces together before you let everybody see them.
Ooh, I like that one. What other hacks can you share with us?
Um, yeah, I think
Any
that's probably the best one for right now. But in terms of that, like if you think about how that impacts somebody, when somebody comes on Snapchat, not everybody is on every single hour of every day. I think that you do have to know your audience, and so while what we do have and what we are seeing more of is, people who are adding a lot more friends, they are having to compete with other accounts. I guess people follow more accounts. There's more noise in the news feed or more noise in your story feed. And so you have different ways and you want to look at different approaches for that.
any third-party apps that you could recommend that if you wanted to, let's say, use images from your camera roll or any other third-party hacks that or apps, sorry, that you could recommend or that you like or don't like?
No, I don't really recommend people do a lot of like uploading with the third-party apps. I think that Snapchat has come out and said that they don't really like those as well. There are some different ways that you could, think about things like, maybe taking a photo of an iPad or taking a photo of another phone. Some phone cameras have pretty good quality of these images, and so you are able to actually go in there and you can create a piece of content that would be really good. So that's really popular.
Okay, that's a good one. And so as far as I'm just going to use this for example. So the White House joined Snapchat, and I wanted to, and maybe this is just what you were talking about. I wanted to be able to show that as an example of their story, their 24-hour story. So what I did is I just literally like took my phone to another phone and took a video of the story because I couldn't figure out any
Yeah.
other way to do it.
Yeah, I've done that in the past. I think that's the tough part. I mean, Snapchat doesn't really, they like the creating in the moment, and I think that's one of the great things about it, right? Is being able to create a lot of this content on the fly and in the moment, wherever you're at. And so that's why I think that a lot of people, it's cool if you hold the phone down there. You can think about it. It's not, it doesn't always have to be the highest quality video in order to show some of these things. And I think that that's really what people have come to expect on there as well. So as long as it's informative and you can hear it, you might have to try different ways to do that, but there are different ways. One cool hack that I will say is if you use Spotify, so you can play music on your phone and Spotify, and then you open up Snapchat and you hit record and you record a video, you can include that music in your Spotify video and it picks that up pretty loud.
Oh,
So if you want to add fun music to your stories, it's a really easy way to add like fun music to your stories.
I like that. I like that. So I come from also the search marketing world, and I can just see Snapchat right now. Everybody's talking about it, and it is probably going to drive them crazy because this is not going to show up in Google. This is not something that is easily measured with search engines. So how do you recommend even promoting Snapchat offline Snapchat? So, an obvious would be to put your Snapchat handle in your, let's say, Twitter profile. But how else do you see brands doing it? And what do you think the search marketing industry is going to, how can they embrace this?
I mean, there's some ways that you could think about doing it, right? Like you can download your Snapchat stories and you can post them on other platforms. And so we see people posting them on Facebook and on Twitter and on YouTube, and that helps to create different records of the video. Slinger is becoming a cool app as well. And so those, Twitter, Facebook, putting your Snapchat stories on YouTube, that certainly makes them visible. You could create like pages on your website, and then you could like put those inside of your blogs and talk about your Snapchat, as part of a complete campaign. If you're doing a Snapchat takeover, being able to publish that stuff on your website would help to do that type of stuff. But on the flip side, I would also think that, in some instances, Snapchat can help drive more search as well. So people looking at content inside of a story, even, they're screenshotting different elements. If you tell them to screenshot this, and then they do quickly jump to their phone and might search for something on the mobile web as well. So I think that Snapchat potentially could drive more search than people realize.
Yeah, good point. I mean, the unfortunate part, just like Instagram, is we don't really have that ability to put a link in our Snapchat
Yep.
profile like we do for, Twitter or Facebook. So,
Yeah.
okay, so any other tips on analytics, and are you going to be coming out with any more ebooks or reports for your?
I think that we'll be coming out with some more reports and research for people very soon. We're definitely working on that. In terms of analytics, I would tell the most important thing for people to think about, like one, they can look at consumption over followers. And so I know that people always get concerned about people that are adding them, but if all these people are adding you and they're not watching your stories, what does it really matter? And so I think that you need to look at the number of people who are, and it's not that difficult, right? You quickly open up the app, you can tap the three dots and you can jump down and you can see all of your views. Snapchat shows you that. And it can give you a quick high level of, if you're creating content, who's watching that? Are a lot of people, are they not, are there not a lot of people watching that? If you do want to go more in depth, obviously there's, looking at videos, there's a lot of views that have taken that into account. And so I do think that there are other ways that some brands want to get more in depth, or media companies that are making a lot of content, or influencers that are doing that as well. But if you're just somebody who's starting out in Snapchat, just quickly take a look at the people who are watching it. Don't overpost. Try to figure out, like, I see good snaps between, like, you know 5 to 12 snaps per day, and you can get started, and then take a look and see how many people are watching that. And if you post too much and people aren't watching as much, maybe you want to dial back and look at different ways to do that. So I think that that's, if you're just a beginner, quickly looking at that first number and seeing about how many people have opened your stories is a good way to test if your audience is growing or not.
And so basically it's quality still over quantity.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. And is there a certain, like, do you have to create stories every day? Do you have to be live on Snapchat every day, or from a brand standpoint, is a couple times a week? I mean, is there any
I
sweet spot in that yet?
Yeah, I don't think that you need to create content every single day. I think that if you are a brand, um, you have to remember that a lot of Snapchat stories that are created by friends, by people's friends, are very personable and they're fun, and they're watching those a lot more. That doesn't necessarily mean that they want to watch that brand's about, wants to see that same type of content from a brand. And so I do think that if I were a brand, and the brands that we've worked with in the past, like Jolly Rancher and others, we've looked at creating like a channel strategy, which says, hey, every Monday or every Wednesday, you might want to come to the Jolly Rancher Snapchat account to check this takeover, and then maybe promote it the day before, or a few days leading up to it, and really make the one focus of one quality story a week. And so you can experiment with different ways. So no, I don't think that a brand needs to post every single day, but I do think that maintaining some type of consistency is really what's going to help grow.
And as of right now, there's really not a platform like a Hootsuite or Buffer, or Snapchat is native Snapchat, right?
Yep. So
I
you
mean,
have
if
to
more
actually
than one,
create the content. Yep.
right, right, which is awesome,
Yeah.
which was what makes it awesome.
Well,
All
that's
right,
why we
Nick,
see.
great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, that's why we do see more brands, turning to influencers on Snapchat, especially, right? Because they have the ability to produce this content at better quality than oftentimes like a social manager inside of a company might, because they're more native and they understand the platform and they have more experience. And so I think that hopefully that's what we'll see more brands do in 2016.
I agree. And, I think if you haven't actually experienced Snapchat, which I'm sure everybody that's watching this has, but for marketers that are not in college right now, maybe it's slightly intimidating, but I mean, Snapchat is super easy, super fun. And I mean, it really is the raw social media.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Nick. Well, thank you so much. And any other publications you can recommend besides your own newsletter for the students to follow and learn from?
Snapchatstrategy.com by my friend Ben is a pretty good resource as well. So it's a Medium collection of a bunch of different articles. I have some up there. A lot of other people have stuff. So there are a lot of interesting points of view in all different ways. Some are good. They're all interesting in their own different ways. And so I think that that's just the cool thing right now, is that everybody's trying a lot of different types of stuff. So read a lot of different types of things if that's what you're really interested in.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know the class definitely appreciates it, and everybody have a great day.